Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 176 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I'm your host. I am beat to shit. It is 3:15 in the morning here in London. I'm in a hotel room. If you hear some snoring, it's my wife in bed yonder, because she wasn't about to hang while I did this shit. But with me, as always, from the comforts of Michigan, is Darick Oswald Charmer. Did you watch the Pro Tour?
I got to watch a little bit of it, not as much as I would have liked. Unfortunately, I also, I had, so I did, not make it to the armory, but I've been playing actually a fair amount of Flesh and Blood with Stark because I'm trying to prep him for his first armory, and I introduced him to, Karabast and Talishar, so he can now play both Star Wars and Flesh and Blood through, the online thing, and you would have thought that I was like revealing the world to him because he was like, wait, you can do this?
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. You
sure can.
So yeah, I got to watch a little bit of it on Saturday. Did not get to watch anything on Sunday, unfortunately. So it's actually just open in another browser right now. I just haven't. Originally I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll just try to like watch some while I'm working, like have it on in the background. That did not happen. It was part of my problem is that for like the last like week and a half to 2 weeks, it's just been very frantic at work, and my time has bled over into the nights and weekends. But it is that time of year, right? Mm-hmm. It is the busiest time of year for me in my day job, but this year has been, like I can't talk about details, obviously, but like, I'll just say this year has been particularly trying because of many of the, things that are happening in the world of politics and the ripple effects of those. So even if it's not something that is a direct result of a political thing, part of my job is trying to stop fraud and prevent folks from taking advantage of certain systems. And when there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of turmoil, folks tend to use that to their advantage, or at least they try to. So it has kind of been an all hands situation at work. And I'm just so mentally fried. I legitimately, like, mid this monologue, thought that we were still recording this on Sunday and had to remind myself that, no, actually, today was Monday. And I did, in fact, like, do all of the Monday things today. It's something else. So, no, I got to watch some on Saturday. Sunday, unfortunately, I have it queued up, but I have not finished the Sunday coverage yet. But what I watched on Saturday was very fun as expected, very engaging. I liked a lot of what I saw, but also not a lot of what I saw.
I know why, but so a couple of quick things before we dive into the show itself. I'm in London. I was at the Pro Tour. I competed in the Pro Tour. We'll go over that here in a moment. I was one of 8 players on Syndra, so you can imagine what that was like. But
it's still so shocking to me that I would not have guessed that the number of players on Syndra would have been below 10.
Yeah, we'll go over it, but so a couple of things I want to just get out there. We won't be touching on the keynote really in this episode, mainly because I am working from a Microsoft Surface in a hotel room without my normal 49-inch ultra wide monitor with everything open in front of me. So it's going to be really
You
hard.
size king.
I know, right? But it'd be really hard to talk through it. That's all. And so we will be addressing that next week, and talking through all of that. But we will be talking through the entirety of the Pro Tour and what really that means. My Pro Tour I played Syndra on the idea that the amount of smart players in the room would be very high, and they would figure out that Enigma is the best deck to be playing. And that didn't happen. So I thought that there's 523 players in the Pro Tour. It's the largest Pro Tour ever. And of those, there were 162 Auroras and 95 Enigmas. I thought that'd be closer to an even split, which led me to believe that I could, at least pull off 3 wins in CC, and I was confident in my ability to 2-1 draft. So that was my rationale, because I thought maybe some Florians to beat the Enigmas, and then the Enigmas are out there as the best deck to be doing, period. And, with the way that the meta was set up. But people just kind of decided the explosive nature of Aurora was just too tempting, and that really carried through. So my first round, I played Aurora. I played against an Aurora. I lost the dice roll, and that was it for the most part. That explained that whole match. Feels like going back and thinking about that matchup, I think that if I win the dice roll, all things equal, I do win that matchup. It was very close. The next round, I get paired into Aurora, and I ate an Aurora high roll. There's no better way to put it. It was by turn 4, he had played all his Arc Lightnings and all of his CLVs, and at one point in time had 2 CLVs going with a Burn Up Shock to draw 2 cards on my turn, and then a Sigil to draw 2 cards on my turn, and a Burn Up Shock to make sure he could draw 2 cards on his turn. So it was just there's nothing I can do. And then I get paired into a Vincent, which is not something you want to see as Syndra. It's not pretty. Let's put it that way. So started off 0-3, and then I found the Enigmas. And was able to rattle off 2 wins, so now I need a 3-0 draft instead of 2-1. I misplayed slightly in sequencing in an early turn in my first round of draft against Noah Begelman. And I don't know if that cost me the match, but it definitely impacted the way the match flow went, and wound up losing that one, but then won the next 2 to finish 4-4. So totally reasonable. I 2-1 to draft as I expected to. I just thought there was room for one more CC win. There wasn't. Wound up missing day 2. I elected to not play the calling. I just elected to just jam side events and do fun shit. And mostly hang out with people. So that's, and that's one of those things about these types of bigger events. There are so many people that sometimes you look at the game and you're like, game, I like game. And then you look over, it's like, but people, I don't see these people. I'm going to people. And with people leaving at all kinds of different times, like tonight, for instance, I had dinner with Mara and Dagan White and Josh Scott. Last night,
just rub it in.
Yeah, I am. Last night was out at a sweet ass Indian restaurant in Canary Wharf with Az and Ian Holland and Summer Giles and Connor and Podrick from Ireland. And that was fantastic, and a couple of people new friends I didn't know, so So yeah, and got to spend time hanging around Joe Sapp, which is always the best. I fucking love that guy. Um, and so that part of it is always just the best, and also just like almost throwing Kevin Murphy to the ground when I caught up to him after he locked for top eight, just out of excitement and forgetting that he is much smaller than me. Um, and then getting to see, Carlotta and Carlos. Had dinner with them one night with Az and the crew. Um, so yeah, just an absolute parade of some of my favorite people that I just don't get to see on a regular basis. So because of that, I kind of was like, you know what? If I was playing the calling, I'd be a psychopath to not play the best deck in my bag, which right now would be Aurora. And I don't want to, so I didn't. Instead, I played some side events, played some sealed. There was a great experience where I sit across from a French player, and she said she started playing a little bit ago, but not too long, and she is really into Prism, and I explained to her my position on this and how I don't love cops, and that's what illusionists are. But getting past that, she was like, my husband said, if I can go 2-2 or better in a sealed event with Arachne, he'll buy me a Marvel Prism. And I'm like, all right. She's like, do you know Arachne? And I'm like, I sure do. Would you help me build this? Absolutely. And she had a pretty good Arachne pool, and I kind of explained to her the ratios, what we're looking to do, how we want the game to go and the flow to go, and she just 3-1s the event. And I'm like, there we go. Now he owes you a Prism. And I felt really good about that one. Just so I spent a lot of time. I nailed down a bunch of guests for this show.
What?
And yeah, a ton of them actually. So we'll have some conversations coming up with some super fun people soon. I finally got to meet Tyler Loose Leaf Tea in person. He's only been lurking around our Discord for years.
Yeah.
And finally got to meet him and Charlie Heron. Again, never met him in person until now. Got to spend time around, Vishra. He'll be, I think we're going to have him and Kevin Murphy on in a couple weeks to basically detail how the illusionists stole this event. And then, yeah, and then a lot more guests coming down the pipe. So it'll be a fun time. We're not going to turn it into an interview
Prism
show.
messed up my prediction.
Yeah. So
because we said, remember, I said 3-2-1, right? 3 Aurora, 2 Enigma, 1 new, and then I said a Florian, and then I was kind of wishy-washy on the last one. I know Howling Minds was in the top 16, was just outside the top 8 on Florian, so He almost was my top 8 Florian. But we did get the 3 Aurora, the 2 Enigma. Like I was like, all right. And then what? Prism?
Yeah.
I mean, I see it. It's a very underrated hero, very underrated deck. We see Prism is almost like Kano in many ways, where we see the deck do well at events where typically it's either like 2 or 3 make a top 8 or none. And I think it's because of what you and I always say about Kano, which is like the forgot about Dre, right? Like Kano does well when people stop teching for Kano, and Prism does well when people stop teching for Prism. And I do legitimately think that has a lot of this. I think that it was a very ripe field to just come in and drop, drop some Phantasm bombs.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, land the 747s, like just do the thing. And that happened. Yes, Prism had a day, or 2 days, I should say, because most of them were in day 2. And like I said, my thought going in after doing some work was that Enigma was the best deck in my mind. I just did not have any confidence in my ability to pilot it, but I had tons of confidence in my ability to beat the ever-loving shit out of it. So I was like, let's go that route and hope that people churn. It just didn't line up. Uh, but with with the results here, we already just alluded to it. So, official GOAT status has now been conferred to Pablo Pintor after a second Pro Tour win. So, congrats,
Yep.
Pablo, on Enigma. The top eight
And
was. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that's another one for Greg to put in the supercut. We did say that if Pablo was on Enigma, like very specifically, I said if Pablo's on Enigma, I think that he could take it.
Yep. What do you know? And all because he wants Guardian to be playable. That's the funny
Right.
part. I mean, he played Enigma to get it the fuck out of here. Um, but yeah, so top eight was Pablo on Enigma, Andrew Cook on Prism, Paul Van Giesel on Aurora, Leo Vezine on Prism, Kevin Murphy on Prism, Sean Dollywall on Aurora, Max Diekman on Enigma, and Michael Yasser on Aurora. So if you're counting at home, that's three Aurora, three Enigma, or two Prism, or three Prism, and two Enigma. Um, and it was a Enigma versus Enigma final. So I felt really vindicated in my read of the format at that point in time. Yeah, it's just Enigma being good. Our guesses weren't that far off though, because we had said, six of the decks would be Aurora, three Aurora. That nailed that one. And we had said three Illusionists, and it turned out to be five Illusionists. But it just turns out that the wild cards were Prisms, really.
Right.
Um, so feel pretty good about that. Um, then you kind of bounce into the calling, and I will say this: there were a lot of the best players in the world that were sitting in my bracket of the Pro Tour, and it kind of lends to how little coin flippy the format got. And when you're seeing, Mara's down there at at 04 in constructed, alongside Peter Budensick, and I'm talking with Majin Bey, who's also 2-3, and um, on down the list, Andrea Mengucci didn't have a great tournament. Michael Hamilton didn't have a great tournament. Brody was back from his suspension and didn't have a great event. He played Azalea, so sure. Um, and just on down the list, and it was like this. Turns out the game's fucking hard. What do you know? But what that does is it puts all those killers into the calling. Um, and here we go with Emily Froese. I believe that's how you say it. Winning on Enigma, and the top eight was three Aurora, like fucking clockwork. Um, four Enigma and an Arachne slip through the cracks. There's that's a lot. Um, and then the finals was Emily on Enigma versus Andrea Mengucci on Aurora. So yeah, um, it's interesting because when you get into these rooms of people who've been tuning decks and working on getting these things to line up the way they want them to and have these super tightly tuned lists, and that's what they bring. The format does get a little inbred with just the same decks over and over again everywhere, and so the calling gets that way too. There was, I guess, one really cool instance where a Hexagore Levia beat Michael Hamilton on new. Apparently, the player's plan was to play all 69 cards into all matchups, and was fatigued, but was able to get off a Shadow Realm Horror Dread Screamer Hexagore. That's a lot of lethal.
Yeah.
For those at home that don't know what any of those cards do, that's a lot of lethal.
It's like a Rhinar turn.
Yeah, it's better than most Rhinar turns. So there was still some shenanigans happening. And like at that point in time, that makes sense. But the format was really, really solved-ish It felt like when watching the calling get played. There, not to say there weren't epically good games being played, because there were. It just turns out that people kind of knew what was going on and were able to kind of lock in and do the thing. So, the fun part of all of this is Enigma is basically dead. So we'll get to that here in a moment. But first, there was a battle hardened in London. It was won by Nova Chan on Chain. Big shock. It was Living Legend. Top 8 was 4 Starvo, 3 Chain, Random Prism, Sculpture of Light. I would like to take a moment to talk about Living Legend, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We don't have a good format right now. Cull is just so good in Chain that you just kind of get to do stupid shit on repeat. And Starvo is still snorting crayon Starvo. The somersault restriction had some impact, but there's still 4, right? And it definitely, looking up and down the tables, looked like a Starvo Chain format. And that's a little disappointing. I know they want it to be the Wild West. I know that they want it to be a you can do whatever you want format. But if you can't beat Starvo and or Chain, there's no point in playing the deck. Whatever you're picking up, just don't do it, because those decks are rampant and everywhere. And turns out there's not a ton that beats those. And oops. But now let's go talk about what is about to happen in Classic Constructed. So ProQuest Singapore qualifiers start this weekend. And Zen and Enigma both need like 4 wins each to be LL'd and gone. Enigma winning the calling and the Pro Tour bumped her up to 989 points. Zen's at 991, so Zen needs 3 wins. And the odds are that both of them are going to go away.
Yes.
That being said, what's the hot take for you? Aurora's still the boogie woman. And we'll talk about her specifically in a second. But with those 2 decks gone, what does this look like? What's the fallout?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Zen leaving doesn't really change a lot, as weird as that's
No, it doesn't.
gonna sound. Because a lot of the things that Zen can do, while it's not the same way or necessarily the same play pattern, in terms of just like consistent output, if you're playing Zen and you want to keep playing Ninja, you can play Syndra or you can go to Aurora. You have options. That doesn't feel like it is as isolated in the meta as Enigma. So with Enigma gone, I think most of those players are going to split into 2 camps, right? Like if you're an Enigma player, you're probably either like Pablo, who's just playing Enigma because it's the best Guardian in the format. And so after that, you might go back to trying to see how the Guardians feel with Enigma gone. Or both because of the tremendous performance at the Pro Tour, but also because other people who are playing Enigma were doing so because they are just illusionist mains, or they are people who were playing Enigma because maybe they were on Dromai, and when she left, that was their new refuge. I could see an uptick in Prism representation as well. So I do think that that's the most likely like immediate shift in terms of representation. I do, however, also think that the other ripple effect is that some of the decks that have been I think, underrepresented. I mean, the meta's still got enough, like what I would describe as currently like tier 2 or B tier decks that can be competitive, that it hasn't really felt like it's just like a rock, paper, scissors, while there are, I think, a handful of decks that are kind of head and shoulders above the rest. I do think that whenever you have something like an Enigma leave the format, you will also see other people kind of go back to pet decks, right? A great example would be like, I remember when Lexi left the meta, and you had people like Yuki who were on Bolton for a couple of events just because Bolton's a pet deck. They felt comfortable, and if you don't know what you're going to do in an unknown meta, or if the deck that you were playing hasn't recently left, it makes sense to hit your greatest hits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did Yuki stay on Bolton? No, because she's not crazy.
Right.
But I do think that we could see some of that as well, right? Pro Tour events also bring out, the most competitive minded folks. And in the spirit of that, even if folks have a pet deck, they might have still wanted to pilot one of the ones that they felt was better. And so again, this could also give you a chance to revisit old things. So I would expect at least a marginal uptick. I don't think it's going to be huge, right? But percentages upticks with more decks like Florian, for example. I think Florian's just generally on the rise anyway, but Florian, if you're somebody who was playing the defensive Enigma, for example, Florian has a defensive package. It's still an Earth hero, and there are some things that you can do with Florian. Jarl is also there, same thing. Mm-hmm. Earth package, defensive, Guardian, etc. I would expect Jarl representation at least in the immediate couple of weeks after the event and after Enigma leaves, for sure, to see maybe an uptick there. I would also personally expect unless Prism ends up being like absolutely insane or whatever, I would personally expect some of the Wizards to get an uptick in representation as well. Like, I think that both Kano and Verdance are definitely decks that are pet decks for a lot of people, right? Like Majin's a great example. Like he likes his Wizards. He loves the Green Lady. Pro Tour season's done. Not as much
stakes,
emphasis on like trying to do the thing, unsure, kind of open meta, again, why not go back to what right? So like I would expect some of those heroes to also see a little bit of an uptick as well. So yeah, that's kind of my initial like kind of knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of when I kind of like realized what was happening, that Enigma's gonna be gone, and that concern is gonna be gone. My first thought was, oh shit, Kasai's unbanned. I can do the thing again.
Yeah, maybe because, not. But again, pet deck theory,
right? It is pet deck theory, but the only reason that you just couldn't play Kasai in an event period is beating Enigma felt impossible. And Enigma exists. So, with that gone, I mean, shit. I have a local Pro Quest on the 26th. I'm probably playing Kasai. Like, fuck it. We ball. And knowing that if I miss top 8, I just then will commentate on the top 8 of that event and just do coverage for it. So, so just one way or the other, right?
Right.
And but play something that's fun, that I enjoy doing, like that I like to fuck with, and like quite honestly, because I did what I normally do whenever I'm looking at an event and actually preparing for it, is I do all of my work, nail in what I think I should play, and then I'll play 10 matches of Kasai. Random matches of Kasai. Just to show me that I shouldn't play her. And this time, I queued it up. and I went 7-0. And I then did not finish the last 3 matches because I was like, I, I, I can't do this. If I clean 10-0, then I'm gonna do something stupid.
Right.
And I went and finished those matches tonight, and I did go 10-0. So
Of course.
I was just like, fuck. It would have been a very bad thing. But like, I didn't play most of the decks I didn't play were like the meta decks, right? I got one Aurora where I won the dice roll, and AB1 and Valiant Dynamos just did all the work. So, like this isn't that hard. But like they didn't high roll me.
Right.
So great. And I played into Prism once, which I know how that matchup works. I've done that matchup a lot. And my opponent was very confused because they just expected me with, no poppers to just die. But I have these things called cards that block. So if your heralds never hit me, your deck doesn't do shit. Turns out. And they were very confused. But oh, by the way, I have a bone to pick. And not with anybody in particular, but a bone to pick. I learned this weekend that the European language foils, except for French for some reason, are foiled all the way to the border of cards, and they look infinitely better. Like, the draconic borders, when they're foil, just sizzle.
I bet they look good. I bet the Mist Veil, like the Mystic ones, probably look outstanding as well.
Like the essences look stupid good. And so here I am, like an idiot, chasing down German foils for my decks because now I want them. I just earlier tonight, while I was waiting to get on here to keep my brain awake, I popped a box of German Hunted. And it was a pretty good box. It had a foil dual threat in it, which looks great. It had a German, rainbow foil blood splattered vest, which looks awesome because again, foiled all the way out to the border. And then had some like good Majestics in it, and a lot of the Syndra and Fang like heavily played foil, like the foils that are actually in the decks. So I was like, oh, this is fun. I would do this again. But now I'm just addicted. And I want nothing but German foils. So I've clearly been reaching out to our Discord people to be like, hey, you're in Germany? Help? So I've already got them kind of on the lookout because I need German foils. But the next thing, like, kind of want to talk through with in regards to this is Aurora. Now, LSS, right, wrong, or indifferent, kind of painted themselves into a corner a little bit with Aurora. It's the poster child armory deck. We have more coming. We have more armory decks coming down the pipe. It's definitely not the end of the world. In either of the two paths I see forward. But path one is Aurora needs something banned. Now, that is hard because most of the cards that would make sense to ban in the deck are in the armory deck. Like things that would actually dial it back a slight amount. You could just take away Flicker Wisp, but a lot of the versions were trimming that card already, and it was really there for a couple of specific matchups. It felt like it started becoming more of a niche card. So I don't know if that does what you needed to do. The other thing that LSS could do is let her die. Just let her go.
Yeah.
But your problem there is that armory deck is on shelves. And as of right now, it is the most economical way for a person to obtain a battle-hardened / calling tier constructed deck quickly. Is just buy that thing. You're most of the way there. So, starting with you, and I'll give you my opinion after, what do you think the correct, if you were doing this, what would you do?
I think that I would not make it. It's hard without knowing the data, right? But like my initial reaction is I would not make any decisions until I would say after the second week of the ProQuest season. And if Aurora is continuing to be a monster, then at that point you start looking at, okay, well, are you going to get rid of her by letting her die or ban something? And I think that would, in my mind, probably just depend on at what point we're at in terms of. So, like, here's my train of thought, right? Like, let's just say she is at like 800 plus living legend points. I think you just let her go.
Sure.
Because at that point, it doesn't matter whether you ban something or not. People who are investing in an armory deck are going to be doing so, like, under the shadow of she could go after one or two big event wins anyway, right? I think that if you're sub 800 or sub, again, this is one of those things where, like, if I was actually sitting down and I wasn't just like knee jerk responding, I would look at the math and say, how many points could she rack up, this season? What's the trajectory? Blah, blah, blah. But otherwise, I think that you do have to take a look at something.
She's at 695, by the way.
Right. So that's what I was saying, like, after 2 weeks, right? After 2 weeks, is she at 800 plus? Then I think you just let her go. Or not. I mean, I guess it also would depend on, maybe 800 plus isn't the right, maybe it's 900 plus. Like, if after 2 weeks, if week 3 it looks like it would get rid of her, then maybe you let her go. Otherwise, maybe you just want a healthier meta for the rest of the ProQuest season, right? Because player experience does also still matter, like, for the rest of the ProQuest season. Yeah, I don't know. I'm less worried about, like, whatever the adjustment would be for, like, bringing her in line as I am, like, I'm less worried if whatever is potentially or theoretically banned or suspended or whatever, like, if it's part of the armory deck, I don't think that part matters. I don't think that, because historically, right, as somebody who got into this game and the first deck that I tried building was Chain, and then Seeds, which is, there's like 6 copies in the Blitz deck or whatever, right? Because Seeds was like the Chain card. Like, does it suck? Yeah. But is it also the right thing to do sometimes? Absolutely. So, like, if they have to hit something and it's in the armory deck, I'm not super concerned about that, I guess. Because they also, like, they've been going in with a scalpel lately, and they could just do, just the reds of something or whatever, like we've seen in the past. Whereas, with Seeds, it was just like the nuclear option. So,
right. No,
yeah, I think for me, I don't think that you want to do anything until you get like a season or two, or a week or two of the ProQuest season, excuse me, because we just don't know how, I mean, we know like it's been pretty like, okay, you should expect like 3 Auroras top 8, but the reality is like we don't know how much this like letting Prism back out of the box thing is going to impact things, because Prism has the potential to have some pretty good matchups into Aurora, because like your heralds are just free.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
Well,
like you're just dropping bombs.
Not free, but
not free, but you know what I mean, right? Like they are very likely going to like hit their triggers if they have them.
Well, there are, because like Aurora usually is going to have 6-ish ways to pop. They'll usually have 3 legit poppers, plus you have lightning presses. So you have ways to make poppers.
Yes, but like I guess I'd put it another way though, right? Like if they're blocking with something plus the lightning press to get the popper, like, okay, like I still got 2 cards out of Aurora.
Yeah.
You know, at that point anyway, right? So, like, again, I'm not saying that, you know, it's an auto win for Prism or whatever. I'm just saying Prism has, I think, potentially a really favorable matchup into that. And so I think we just have to kind of wait and see what happens here.
I kind of feel like they would want to avoid, I think back to the Briar situation, right? Where Briar was speed running the board. They ate some cards out of her, and she sat in the 900s forever, it felt like, before Fatigue Briar finally put her out, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a preferable life cycle, or if it's just like, fine, the hero's cracked, just let it go. You know, that's it is what it is. You know, and then later on down the road they can print a fixed version or whatever. Whatever that looks
right.
like. Which feels odd, because it's like, what's specifically about the hero that makes it cracked? Is it just the card pool, or is it, you know, the ability to make the embodiment of lightning? Like, what part of this? Or is it just the fact that it's a rune blade?
Rune blades go burr.
Rune blades are historically the best class in the game. So it's hard to say. My instinct is to say let it die. Like, let it get through this ProQuest season. If it's alive at the end of the ProQuest season, and it's at like, I would say like 930 or below, maybe take a bite out of it. But let it go the entire season. And if she's gone, she's gone. If she dies, she dies. You know? Now at 695, you need basically 300 points in the season. There's a pretty good chance that she goes, especially considering there are battle hardens to talk, you know, that'll happen, as well as callings and everything else. Yeah, she's probably gone if you don't touch her, but that might be okay. You know, just let it go. And we'll be back to not being able to play Lightning Rune Blade cards again. Sure. Put the Arcanic Shockwaves back in the box.
I mean, I do think, you know, when you talk about like what is it that makes it crack, I really do think it might just be the card pool, just because
I think it's the card pool, personally. Well, sorry. It's the fact that there's an Aurora specialization that is absolutely ludicrous, paired alongside a card draw engine.
Sure, but even when I'm, again, like thinking about just historically, when you want to be aggressive, all of the lightning heroes have been pretty good at it if you're not a wizard.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, Briar and Lexi both were able to play some things pretty well above rate very consistently. I do think that it is in part the ability to make the embodiments of lightning, but I think that it's even just further that a lot of the lightning stuff is, you know, thematically either got Go Again already baked into it, or you also have the consideration of like, there's just a lot of like either instant speed buffs or additional buffs or right. It's just consistent, right? Like if you just want a talent class, whatever you want to call it, right? If you just want something where you're just like, I really like playing 0 for 4s, like lightning is it, you know?
Or draconic. Draconic is also really good at 0 for 4.
Oh man. I'm fighting a sneeze right now.
Don't die. Oh, he did it.
Turns out I'm allergic to what I was about to say, but I can't wait for our volcanic lightning overlords.
Sure. It's just every 0 for 4. Ever printed. Yeah, he is literally allergic to this thought.
I'm so just... You start with, the lightning stuff, and then you're like, oh, by the way, this is like, chain link number 3, so by the way,
Jesus Christ. Lava burst, your dumbass. Cool. Oh my god. Alright. What are we, like 45 minutes in this episode? I think we can go to listener questions now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair because I might be dying here. I've been struggling today. I have been hard on the struggle bus and
fucking 4 a.m. here. Like, same. I'm gonna edit this thing and post it, and it's gonna be 5 in the morning before I'm done with that at the earliest. And it's gonna be like, then I'm gonna try to sleep. So I am pushing daisies right now, man. I am deader than dead. The only thing fueling me is the knowledge that I have now successfully kept the show streak going from another continent. So, still doing it, babe. First listener question is from Softski. How can I get the new Flesh and Pod playmat? Only through Patreon? No, actually. So, there will be a Patreon exclusive mat that is different. But the mat that I had, if anybody saw me playing this weekend, I was playing on it in London. And that one will be available for purchase through a merch store coming soon. So we will have those available to people that just want to buy them. But there will be a Patreon version for everybody that's in the $25 and up supporter pool. So yes, we will have them available for other people, and it won't just be through Patreon. Basically, I've already worked out the deal for the most part to get them made, so no problems there. Just need to come up with the final proof for the Patreon version, but the non-Patreon version is ready to go. Got a lot of compliments on it, so that was fantastic. People really loved it, and got offered to buy it. People offered to buy it on the spot a few times, and I had to tell them no, and mainly because it was going to be a gift when I was done playing for the weekend, and I did give it away as intended. So, yeah, so they will be available.
They wanted you to give it away now.
Sure.
And you disrespected the Red Hot Chili Peppers because you did not give it away now.
Well, we were already Matchbox 20ing because it was 3 a.m. But
yeah,
we can also Chili Peppers this. I was walking under a bridge earlier. Does that count?
I guess I was under a ceiling fan earlier.
Jesus Christ.
Because there's one in my bedroom.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
Don't worry, that one's not very sturdy. You're safe.
And I'm hoping that you have low ceilings.
No, that one's a very high ceiling. Like if that was not just one that was like dangling from the ceiling, like I could get down with that bad boy, but unfortunately for me.
Ugh. Okay. Next one's from HammerBro82. Do you think LSS suffers from groupthink that causes them to latch onto play strategies that the community does not use, such as hyperdrivers as linchpin for mechanologist, unforgetting, unforgiving for Jarl, etc.? Is it just because their local meta, the dev team, is too small, or are there strategies that we are missing because LSS hasn't published the cards we need yet? Is that the reason for the highly specific job offer a couple months ago? Fresh players. Thoughts on whether we're behind LSS or if LSS is behind the players. Okay. So the devs are fucking smart, if you didn't know. There was a team, I think it was Team Blitz, calling in New Zealand that LSS told the devs, you guys can play as a team. What they did to the field was a war crime. And they were not playing on meta shit. They were just doing whatever the fuck they wanted and styling on people. So they do know what they're doing. If you're a listener, and obviously you are, and you listen to the episode with Brian on it, and he pointed out that the thing that he was very surprised that nobody really figured out was hyperdrivers and how to abuse them. And that's still the case, by the way. But I feel like no one's behind anyone else. They find most of the things, which we know that from even the Zephyr Needle experience. They figured that out. And we're like, we'll give the crew some time and see if they figure it out. And they're like, shit, they figured it out in hours. Fuck. And so I think that we're on a very even footing, which is pretty funny when you think about it, because we have at thousands of players at minimum that are working through the hive mind when we get cards, and there are a very small number of devs, but those small number of devs already have figured out most of the shit that is very, very cracked. So in my thought process, it isn't about missing because LSS hasn't published the cards we need. There are some instances of that. Like, I know, talking to some people, that Vincent was one of the most difficult heroes in the design cycle. It just vacillated between being absolutely cracked and absolute trash. And balancing it was hard. It was going to take time. There are other things like for Jarl. Sure, unforgetting, unforgiving, or the mangle portion of it, people kind of shit on it when it first was like mangle's not good, and they started playing around, going, oh, actually, tutoring mangle's kind of good, interesting, and so mangle made it into the Jarl decks that people were playing. It started out that it wasn't, so there was something there, right? So I feel like, like we are all people. We're all card game players. The devs have a little bit of inside baseball. We have a giant hive mind. We're going to be fairly close to each other. And I think that that's exactly how they want it to be. That's what makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different ways to approach this question. The first is I do think that the devs are probably still a little bit more ahead of the players because they know what the intention is when they do the creation. You have to remember that, like, when they're working on stuff, they're working on stuff that just like has not existed yet. And so when they're playing through, intended interactions and whatever, they're always going to be ahead of us because we haven't even seen what they're conceptualizing yet, right? So just based on that alone, they're always going to be a little bit ahead of us. That's not to say that we don't close the gap or we don't surprise them, but that leads me to the second part, which is card game design is about laying foundations. And so when you word the question in a way that says something like, they keep creating things that, the player base isn't using. Well, they're not using it yet, but they're laying the foundation, right? Again, I've said it several times. Not everything is going to be a home run right away. Not everything is always even going to land at all. But you don't want to do it once, and then if nobody plays it, never revisit it. That's not good, because then players are going to feel like, hey, if I do like this hero, but they abandon this one, then what happens the next time I like a hero if they abandon that one, right? You don't want to set that precedent. So you lay foundations, and if it's not picked up or it's not resonating with people, then you give it a little bit more, and you give it a little bit more, and you adjust. But you have to remember, like, you're not creating things based on current play patterns for players. You're creating things for creating new play patterns and reinforcing existing ones. And you cannot let what people are currently doing influence too much of what you want to do in the future, because part of the fun of games is figuring out, as a player anyway, how to do something you've never done before, figuring out that cool new combo. And so if you're always just giving players what they're either already doing or what they already expect, then in many ways you're kind of taking the whimsy out of figuring out a new play pattern to begin with, right? Or a new interaction. Even with the little bit of what we've seen from High Seas so far, there's already some very cool things, right? And, we think about Hunted, where, they kept some of that stuff under wraps till the world premiere, but just like showing up day one and seeing a card like Kiss of Death, where it's like, hey, we've kind of always talked about, what happens if, certain attacks are also weapon attacks or whatever. And then they went and did it, and it was a really like cool interaction. So you want to have the ability to do something bold. And so I do not think that you can say like, hey, players aren't using this right now, so like I'm going to abandon it, or, players aren't playing any decks that fit this mold or play pattern right now, so I'm not going to do it. I think that you have to be willing to try something. And that's what I love about LSS, is that, even when they miss, to me, it was a hit because they were willing to try something new. And right now, when you look at the rest of the card gaming space, if I'm being honest, not many others are taking risks.
No.
Right? You look at, even Magic, that has, decades and decades of history and a very entrenched player base. And this is definitely a company that could potentially take more risks. And I'm not saying that they don't take any risks, but the only risks that they seem to be taking lately are from Hasbro and their financial ones.
Yeah.
Right? They're not necessarily trying to do something new or reinvigorate within their own game in interesting ways. At least not in the same way that they used to, some time ago. Again, I don't want it to be reductive. They're still trying new things, and there's good people working on the game, but Flesh and Blood is both not a new game, but also still a new game, right? It is both a success, but it's also still a small company, right? There's a duality to Flesh and Blood, but what I appreciate is that despite all of this, instead of just them saying hey, we just want to play it safe, we want to toe the line, we want to do this thing so that we can make it to year 10, make it to year 15. And, they're doing things like printing bright lights. Now, it's very easy for anybody to just sit and say hey, that set was a bad idea from the get-go, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is you don't really know until you try. There's actually, I still think thematically, some very cool things in bright lights. I think that the legacy of bright lights will be our first crack shuffle play set is what it was, right? There's still so many things that I can take away and say, you know what? They tried it. They took the risk. Some of it worked. Some of it didn't. They went back to the drawing board. That's what I appreciate. But again, I say all of this. This is my big long-winded way to circle back to you have to be able to take risks, and you can't just focus on what are they doing now and how do I give them more of that. And so I do think that hyperdrivers, right? You could say, hey, nobody's really doing it. It's not resonating. But then similarly, like Logan said, when we have Brian on the show and he's like, I can't believe nobody's figured out the hyperdriver thing. It's oh, well, maybe there is something there, or maybe it's coming, or
Or maybe he's trolling the shit out of us. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe he's trolling. Who knows? He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would do that, though. Like, he does like to say things tongue in cheek, but ever since he said, hey, we did a set and it was called Oops, All Arachnes, and then we got the Hunted, I am just going to err on that he's always telling the truth until otherwise.
Yeah, that did happen.
Yeah.
Last question is from Sephiroth. Will you be picking up the new Kasai when it's available? Fucking probably. I'm a simp. But yeah, we'll talk more about those and the rest of the keynote and all of the information in the keynote, of which there is a fuck ton. When we record, when I'm back home, when I have at least had a night of sleep in my own bed, and and have the ability to have all that information in front of me, so that I'm not trying to bounce back and forth on one screen to look at everything that was said, because again, it was a lot. I was in the room, I got to be there for the reaction with everybody else. I was right up front. Sam made me get closer, but I
want to get closer to Sam.
Of course you do. Sam's great, and
you just miss him.
Yeah, good kid, good dude, great. I mean, him and Aiden were both there, so I got to say hello to both of them, and James and Trevor and both of the Alexes. So, yeah, it was quite beautiful to be able to actually just see everybody in one shot. Normally, you don't have the full crew there, so it was really nice to have literally everybody. Watkins showed me a picture of the steak that he got to like kind of celebrate. And my God, he was like, I walked up to him and like I think it was on Saturday, and I'm like, how's it going, buddy? He's like, man, I'm still full from last night. I'm like, okay. He's like, I got a 26-ounce porterhouse. I'm like, the fuck are you doing? He's like, well, it's kind of late, and me and the missus were out celebrating, and I went in, and I really wanted a porterhouse, and the smallest porterhouse they had left was 26 ounces, so I said, yep, and I ate the whole thing. I'm like, fuck.
When I was in my early 20s,
baby.
Texas Roadhouse did this thing where they were like, if you eat a 32-ounce steak, you get a free t-shirt or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down with my buddies, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And they're like, you're not going to do it. I was like, I'm going to do it. So I ordered it, and then I ate it. And then they all thought I was insane, because after I ate the steak, I was like, doesn't this come with sides? And then I made them bring me sides, and I ate those too.
Style on them. Beautiful.
But in my defense, I was back when I was like 250 pounds. So.
I'll say, yeah, more closer to my size than now. Let's do a quick thanking of patrons. I do have it up this time, so that's always nice. Our associate producers, we have Aladoris, Andy, Sindra, the Goat, Easier, Jacob, Larry, the Quiet Goat, the Salty Sea Cat, Sofsky, and Zaris. For our executive producers on up, we have Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon. Diana, got to hang out with her this weekend a little bit. Micaiah, Pots on us, Vin Tox. Philip, and then we're in the chamber, babe. Brandon, you're up. Matt, thank you again for your continued support. Michael, Jackal, you're up. I believe we are getting really close to Oren. Yep, Oren's got almost there. One more month to go. Same with Rich. So we'll be having some guest hosts that are patrons here real soon. And if you want that to be you, just go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. And if you take the Chargers Chamber of Charcoal tier and stay in it for 3 consecutive months, you can be a guest host on our show and do this. It's actually kind of fun. or else we wouldn't still do it after 176 fucking weeks. Um, Also, if you join any paid tier, you get into FAP After Dark, which is this kind of live show we do, approximately monthly. I did one a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. Talked about a lot of different things. Um, so yeah, go ahead and join if you want to, or don't. What you should do though is contact us, which you can do at fleshandpod@gmail.com. But the best thing to do is just join our Discord. It's free. Don't have to be a member of anything. Links in the show notes. Just do the thing, and then you're in the Discord, where you can then learn about all the various pickled shit that exists in this world. And it turns out it's a lot. Like, really a lot. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can always find me on Blue Sky. You can just search Flesh and Pod. That's the easiest way to do that. Charmer, where can they find you?
In the Discord is the best place.
Normally. Yeah.
Also on Blue Sky, it's another good spot.
Yeah.
Occasionally, you might be one of the people who runs into me on Talishar, but I'm not going to tell you what my burner account name is.
I found out a lot of people's burner account names drafting for practice drafting. So
I do have I do have Charmer locked up, so like I can play on that periodically, but
you'd rather go to the burner account.
Yeah.
I finally got to meet Ben, by the way.
Oh, finally,
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Walked up, he's like, "Hey, I'm Ben." I'm like, "That's cool." And he's like, "Jim Neben." I'm like,
"Yeah,
Ben. Okay, that makes way more sense.
Ben is a quality gentleman.
Yeah, I talked to him for a little bit. Real good dude. Yeah, that's our show for this week. I am cooked right now, and I'm even sober, so that tells you something. But yeah, so we'll be locked in and ready to go next weekend for episode 177, where we'll talk about all things high seas and the roadmap forward. So until then, stay safe. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.